How do we just solve it, heal it all?
Give me the quick 1, 2, 3, and let's be done with it. This is forever work, which is so beautiful. The good news is that you don't have to figure this out overnight. There's a quote towards the end of the book, because I'm trying to slow us down and not set such high expectations for ourselves. I forget the years and the days. I'd have to look it up in the book. But the Argentinian footballer, Messi, who probably most people know at this point, given the World Cup, he says something like, it only took me 17 years and 143 days to become an overnight success, and I got the years and days wrong, probably. I don't remember it exactly, but that's the point of this work, is that we're not overnight successes. This is a forever process that we keep coming back in contact with over and over and over again. Because as we move through life, new things will present to us, and they will point us back to something that is either new or old, but needs our tending. So the first step, to name it, to identify what the wound actually is. So hopefully in those chapters, the wound chapters, you're going to be able to really connect to which ones show up for you. It is likely that you have more than one. I've had a few people who've had early copies of the book who are like, is it possible to have all 5? So it's like, it is. Yeah. And you might be surprised by some of the ones that you're like, ooh, this does kind of feel like something here. The second part is the witnessing of the pain. We do need a witness. And of course, witness self of self. Beautiful. We want that to be a part of it. At some point, also having another trusted person be a witness is an incredibly profound experience. What we are witnessing is the loss. It's the pain. We are acknowledging it, right? We're acknowledging what was lost way back when. We are acknowledging the loss of the self too, right? That happened long ago. And so I walk us through, if you're reading the book, I've always found this so interesting with books when you're actually reading print, where it's like, okay, often in self-help books, like, okay, sit down, close your eyes. And you're like, okay, but how do you want me to keep reading then? So if you are doing the print version, but you also are working through the origin healing practice, I convinced them to let me put the audio of the origin healing practice on my site, so that even if you did not get the audio book, but you want to be walked through this process, you can actually close your eyes and get comfortable and let yourself really drop into it. It's really hard to go back and forth. Like, okay, I'm going to witness the younger version of myself. Okay, let me do that, and then, okay, now I'm going to do this. It's too disjointed. The third part is grieving. Whew. Even just saying it. It's like, it's a load, and I remember when I was doing this work, one of the images that I would bring into focus for myself was always, I was usually, I think I was about 7 or 8. And I would bring into focus my 7 or 8-year-old self perched atop the stairs at my mom's house. There were 2 flights, and in the middle, there was sort of this open window with just wooden like bars, slats across it. So I could always listen in to the conversation she was having on the phone with my dad. And I was perched atop the stairs, and I remember just sitting there. And there were other times where I'd pick up the second phone in either one of their homes and listen into the conversations. Yeah. And so in the witnessing, right, I would just bring my attention back to seeing that little girl in that moment by herself, taking in a lot of information, absorbing a lot, trying to process a lot all by herself, and just noticing her, acknowledging her, how hard that was, how much emotion was there, letting her know that she didn't need to do that. Like that wasn't what she should have been doing at the time, not from a critical place, from a heartfelt, like, yeah, I'm so sorry that this is what you had to hold. And, the grieving part, the witnessing and grieving really, they're separate pieces to the practice, but they are they really do go hand in hand, because the moment you start to witness, right, like the grief really starts to show up if you'll allow it, and to let yourself feel, to let yourself cry, to let yourself just be in the noticing and the experiencing of it. And, we do this in the privacy of our homes. We do it where we feel the most safe. But this is a part of the practice, because the more that we tend to that, the more that the wound can start to heal, be a little bit more resolved. And it doesn't mean that it's done. I did the practice and now I'm done, right? It's like, no, grief will present as many times as it needs to, right? As many times as the thing comes in contact with that. But beautiful that when we start to do that, it leads us into the fourth step, which is the pivot, which is what I talked about at the beginning of the show today, which is, jumping off the tracks into the fresh powder, into trying something new, taking an eyes wide open risk of doing it a little bit differently, and operating with your wounds not in the driver's seat, but your healing in the driver's seat. Always easier said than done. It is a practice. Sometimes we need to try it 50,000 times before we get it. That's okay. But, through repetition, right, there's going to be some movement there. And I'm so excited for people to walk themselves through the practice as many times as we need to go at a pace that feels okay for folks. With the safety wound, I walk people through a safety meditation, as opposed to, the origin healing practice is always there, but I always recommend for people to really be mindful and thoughtful of their experience. If you have trauma, if you have complex trauma, to maybe work alongside of a therapist as you move through some of the stuff that you find in the book. But I'm so excited for people to connect with their origin pain and to start on the path of resolution.
Yeah, I mean, the access to it through your book makes it so, I mean, we can do it in a nice Sunday afternoon and begin to have the ding ding dings going on, because they seem endless, and I love that process too. The first one is name, witness, grieve, and then pivot. Yeah, and you can't leave any of those processes unpivoted, or else you stay in the pattern. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. You can't just jump to pivoting. That's what people try to do when they come to therapy, right? They're like, I want to solve, right? Like, we want to just pivot. And it's like, this is right. We want to just pivot what's happening right now. And great, try. But if it's not working, please come into this work. Like, if you want to try to pivot, go for it.